for joining us on Savvy Senior Sources, Talking with Experts. Let's take a moment and hear from our sponsors, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SIDAC.
What is the secondary market for life insurance? The secondary market for life insurance is an emerging financial market that provides individuals options with their policies. These options allow policyholders to benefit from the value of their life insurance. Policies are sometimes a financial burden, especially for seniors, as premiums often increase over time. The secondary market offers financial alternatives that can help policyholders benefit from their life insurance now.
Hi, I'm Beth Paterson, a certified reverse mortgage professional with Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. Bob's wife passed away, meaning his Social Security income was cut in half. His financial advisor suggested he look into a reverse mortgage. With the reverse mortgage, he was able to take a dream vacation with his nephew, and oh, the stories that they can share. After Bob passed away, his niece shared the difference that it made to the whole family. Dorothy did the reverse mortgage in order to protect her other retirement funds. With her line of credit, she was able to travel, buy a new car, and do home repairs. Years later, she's still benefiting from the reverse mortgage line of credit and not having to rely on her children. For more information on how you too can have security, independence, dignity, and control, contact us. Welcome to Savvy Senior Sources, Talking with Experts. Savvy Senior Sources guides your way through resources A to V for seniors, boomers, caregivers, and their advisors. Through the shows, we introduce you to the experts. In addition to the TV shows, we also publish a resource guide, Savvy Senior Sources Guide, and full of all kinds of information for you. Visit our website, savvyseniorsources.com, to learn more about the resources and information on the guide. I'm Beth Paterson with Savvy Senior Sources, as well as Executive Vice President of Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. I'd like to take a moment and say thank you to our sponsors, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SIDAC, for making this show possible. I'd also like to say welcome to my co-host, Marci Holley from Minneapolis Public Housing.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. And our guest today is LaRhae Knatterud from the Minnesota Department of Human Services, sorry. I know it too well. And we are talking about Own Your Future. And this is a special topic to me because I have served on the advisory board since 2012. So welcome and glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And let's talk about your role with Own Your Future, and then we'll get into the details.
Okay, well, thank you, Beth. It's great to be here, and we appreciate the time to talk about this important topic, Own Your Future. I have worked at the Department of Human Services for almost 20 years now, and that whole time I've been mainly focusing on projects that help Minnesota get ready for the huge shift in the age of our population when we have many more older people than we've had ever before. That permanent shift is going to change a lot of things, and so we need to be ready. For the last 3 years or so, I've been working on the Own Your Future campaign, which is a federal effort. It's a priority of the Dayton administration to help people become more aware of the need to plan for their long-term care.
Okay, so why is it important for people to plan?
Well, you know, it's something that many of us don't do enough of. People don't plan for their retirement. We spend more time planning our summer vacation than we do planning our retirement. And long-term care is the same kind of issue. This is important because we're living longer. As I said, you know, we have a huge age wave coming at us with all of the boomers and with people living much longer than they ever have before. And that means that instead of retiring and having only 5 years left of our life, we might have 30 more years that we have to plan for. And often some of that time is spent with illness and with chronic conditions, which is why you need long-term care. Another reason why people need to plan is that we used to depend on our families for a lot of our care, and the family still provides the vast majority of care that we need. But families are changing, and they're not as large as they used to be. Women are working much more, and we have many more older relatives to take care of. And so when
or long distance.
Or long distance caregiving, exactly, all kinds of changes. So if family can't provide unpaid help, then people have to start paying for long-term care. And so planning and starting early to think about what are the kinds of resources that I'm going to need to help pay for long-term care. That's an important reason for us to start early and to plan ahead.
What kind of questions should we be asking to start addressing some of these problems early?
Well, that is an excellent question too, because you know, people when they start planning and they start getting into it, they're often confused because there's so much information. So one of the things that we've done on our website and in our printed materials is to talk about 4 key questions that we should ask. The first one is my family willing to take care of me? And are they available? And you know, are they able to do that sort of thing? That means that you should have a conversation with your family about what your preferences are and also what their expectations or their opportunities to provide care really are. Some people don't want to be a burden on their family, even though the family wants to help. And sees that as a way to give back after receiving care themselves. But it's very unique. Each person is a little different about that, if it's a burden or if it's a pleasure to take care. So having a conversation with your family is a real key first step. The second question has to do with where am I going to live? And this kind of gets into a lot of other retirement questions about, am I going to stay in my home or if I'm going to move to another state? All of that is a big issue. But in terms of long-term care, the housing question is, do I live now in a place that has a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom on the same floor? Because when it starts getting a little hard to get up and down those steps, which trust me, most of us will get there at some point because arthritis is extremely prevalent. But if you're in a place that has that all on one floor, you don't have to worry about that kind of an issue. So you might want to move to a place that is like that, or you might want to modify your home. So figuring out your issues of housing preferences, if you want to stay where you are, if you want to move to senior-only housing at that point, or later, all of those are things that you need to look at. The third question is really at the heart of the Own Your Future, and that's how are you going to pay for long-term care? Once you don't get help from your family, or if it goes beyond their ability, you have to start paying for long-term care, and it can be extremely expensive.
And I want to clarify long-term care as needs, not long-term care insurance, because we've had this conversation many times. When people hear long-term care, they often think we're talking about long-term care insurance. No, we're not talking about the insurance. We're talking about the care that's needed and now options for paying.
Thank you, Beth, because you're one of the first persons that told me that was a confusion among consumers, and I've found that as I've been out to the state fair to take surveys and talk to people, that when you say long-term care, they often think that it means insurance.
Yeah,
and you're right.
I do.
I'm talking about the kind of care that you need, and that care can be expensive. It can go from $20,000 or $30,000 a year for home care up to $80,000 or more for 1 year in a nursing home. So the idea of us needing ways to pay for this is a really important part of the Own Your Future. A lot of people have thought that long-term care insurance is the only way to pay for long-term care, and that it's too expensive, so they're not even in the picture. But what we have found is, and the other thing we have found is that people feel that Medicare will cover it, and we know that Medicare does not cover long-term care of the custodial nature, only a few things after a hospital stay.
And that's also a confusion. People think that that's a bigger issue, or that Medicare, oh, I've got Medicare, that's going to pay for it. No, that's more health insurance type.
There are a lot of myths and poor information. And then some people feel that Medicaid is their only option. And we have a very good Medicaid program. That is for people who have spent down to about a 3,000 asset level. So it means that it's available for people who need to do that and who don't have exhausted their resources. But for middle income households in Minnesota, what we're trying to do is to provide some additional products that don't require them to divest themselves of those assets, and that they can actually pay for the services themselves and have the control and have the options that they have, rather than depending on something else that could change at any time. So that third question of payment is really a key part of Own Your Future, and there's a lot of information on our website about different options. Home equity is another option, savings and investments, other kinds of insurance, not just long-term care insurance. So we've tried to make that available in our information. And then the fourth question is about advanced care planning. And that's, have you told your family and other important people in your life your wishes at the end of your life? And that's a very important thing. A lot of us have not yet done that, the healthcare directive and healthcare agent, but we felt that that's really a very important part of this long-term care discussion.
Yeah, share some of your experiences, because you're in a role of caregiving and.
Yeah, my mother had surgery and the bottom kind of fell out, and she ended up in the hospital for a long time, and then we needed to look for a nursing home, and maybe even they suggested that we looked for assisted living, and I was so flabbergasted at the prices, how much everything was going to cost. And a lot of people said, well, if you did have long-term care insurance, it would cover this. But most of it was private pay. And for people that haven't planned, which we did not, it was a huge learning curve, that is not fun for families to go through.
People are shocked at some of the prices, and it's more than most people would ever have, available unless they had started planning. And what we're trying to do is to actually talk to 40-year-olds and people who are at the point where they can start looking at some of these options and have the time to either save and invest, or to purchase insurance before they have chronic conditions and aren't eligible. So it's important for people to start early.
It really had me and both my brothers sit back and take a look at our lives and start planning now for our children, because it is important.
Absolutely.
And we need to plan ahead, earlier the better, but in the big picture, being familiar with all the different options. And there are several on the Own Your Future website, as on the bottom of the screen, but also our sponsors are GWG Life, who provides life settlements, converting life insurance policies into cash, reverse mortgages using the home equity. So for those who didn't plan ahead, there's some options that they could use now. And I know through the Own Your Future meetings, the advisory panel, we had several discussions on various options and what we're looking at, what could be possible, creating some options that may not be available today, or some that are, that we want people to be aware of that maybe they haven't heard of before. Can you talk a little bit about some of those options?
Yes. Beth was on our group, and we truly appreciated the amount of time that the committee members spent kind of turning over every rock we could find to look for new products or ways that we could maybe refresh current products so that they would be more available to the middle income. We focused on the middle income because people with a lot of money can do whatever.
Yeah.
They can self-fund, they can purchase a policy or whatever they want to do. People who are very low income are going to be eligible for the Medicaid, and we have a great safety net in Minnesota, and that's what it's there for. But it's for the rest of us who are in the middle. We define that as people with $50,000 up to $125,000. And so we came up with 15 different proposals for different kinds of products that we already have that maybe need some refreshing or maybe some new ones. One of the new ones that we are hoping to be able to spend more time doing analysis of is a product that starts off as term life insurance for someone in their working years when they need the protection for their family, and it converts into a long-term care insurance product when people retire or thereabouts, so that for just a few $100s a year is what it's looking like right now. In our first actuarial analysis, you could get some good coverage. What we hope to do, if we get the resources needed, and this is in the governor's budget, was one of the 2 items from Own Your Future that have been included in the governor's budget this year, it would provide some additional money to do consumer testing so that we could find out if consumers are interested in this particular product, and then talk with carriers, because of course the state would not be developing insurance, but if we had some good information about the interest and the cost, then we could maybe work with carriers and give them this information and see if other products can be developed, because we need better products to come into the market so that people can see things that are affordable and that things that they could purchase. So that's one of the brand new products. We also have talked about making sure that people know about the products, like using home equity, using health savings accounts, the life settlement, and other ways that life insurance can be involved. And so the other recommendation that this subgroup made that has been included in the governor's budget is paying for a clearinghouse or for a help center, where you would have people who understand this kind of information on financing options in long-term care, so people could call and get some more objective information. Because now, quite frankly, the people that you get the information from may be the people who are focused on one product or another. And for people who are trying to make that decision, they want someone who wouldn't stand to benefit one way or another. So we're hoping that both of those items are successfully funded at the end of the session.
I think the call center would be so helpful for families. I know in my predicament, we didn't know who to really talk to and who was giving us information that was benefiting them, or it's a tough place to be in, and that would be very helpful to a lot of families.
And they won't be the salesperson, and the state, through any of the resources, cannot do a direct referral to any particular vendor or that, but say, here are options and to explore. And then my encouragement for people is get that information and explore. Talk to people who are local that you know and can get to know, and that's part of the purpose of the show, is to introduce you to those people. But also the Savvy Senior Sources Guide, we can select the members who are in there, so that helps to distinguish that they are trusted advisors versus just going on the internet. But get the information on all the different resources and then explore further and meet with people to get who you're comfortable in working with.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of information out there.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit of the cost of long-term care, because this is pretty eye-opening to me and kind of sets the stage for why we need to plan. And if you can, do you remember the percentage of it's?
Well, about 70% of us are going to need long-term care services and supports at some time in our life. And the typical episode, I have found this very interesting to tell the audience that I talk to about this issue, that the episode at the end of your life when you're going to need long-term care is about 2.5 to 3 years. And so there are outliers. People who have dementia or Alzheimer's may need it for more years than that, but that's the average. And so as you're thinking about the money that you need after your family is no longer able to provide, or if they weren't able to provide, then you're looking at that amount of time. But the cost for the home care, if you had 2 or 3 visits a week during the whole year, that could, for a bath and for cleaning and so forth, that would end up being $20,000 or $30,000 for the year. Adult daycare is something that more and more families are using if they want their older relative to live with them, but if they work, and it's similar to child care, although it's a little different service and support. But that can be between $30,000 and $40,000 a year if someone goes for 3 or 4 days during the week. Assisted living is very available in Minnesota. It's not always affordable for the lower income, but we have a lot of assisted living compared to other states. But because of the way that the service charges are made, which as I understand it is many of them are on 15-minute increments, and so if you get a service for 15 minutes, then that is charged, and another 15 minutes is an additional charge. So that you have to be careful when you are thinking about that option to make sure that you understand how the charges are going to be made for services, because that can add up fairly quickly. The average that we have for Minnesota is about $40,000 a year. But if you need more services, it quickly increases.
And that comes out of our pocket. That's not covered by...
It's primarily private market.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had insurance, it would probably cover that because most of the newer policies do. But it's not the same as a nursing home in terms of the coverage. There are people who are on the elderly waiver who are living in private assisted living, and I know in your agency you also do that for lower income elderly, which is great. But it's something that is primarily private pay at this point.
And that's where a life settlement could come in. If somebody has a life insurance policy that they're not can't afford to continue or no longer needing, they can convert that into cash to pay for the senior housing options if they didn't get the long-term care insurance or something else. So there are some options, and they need to explore some of those options. Let's on time, let's take a minute. We've got the website for Own Your Future, but we also have some guides. And as you're pointing out the guides, what advice would you give to people as they begin their journey for long-term care planning?
Well, seems to me there are 2 things that we all need to do. The first one is to find out more about what long-term care is and what's available in our communities. These 2 booklets start with and give us some information on that. This booklet is about long-term care, and it helps you through the questions that we talked about earlier. And then to go along with this, which is just about long-term care, we have a timeline to retirement, which incorporates long-term care in all of the retirement planning that we do, because really they are very connected. So these are available on the website, or if you call our number, you can have this sent to you as well. But the first piece of advice is to find out, talk to people about what services are available, find out what people have made decisions about so that you can get a better sense of how others have approached this. We learn a lot from our parents, and one of the last lessons they teach us is about long-term care. Because if we get involved and we begin to understand the gaps and also the things that are available, we realize that we need to know that for ourselves. So getting as much information about what's in your community and what your preferences are going to be is important. And then the second piece I would say is that do this as soon as you can, because the worst thing you can do is to make these decisions during a crisis. If you have a crisis, that we make the worst decisions that we ever make during a crisis. If you break your hip and you go to a hospital, if you have a stroke and you can't communicate and there's no way for the family to know what you wanted. So I think making sure it doesn't happen in a crisis is key for
definitely.
success.
Okay, well, that's our time. Thank you very much for being here, LaRhae, again from the Minnesota Department of Human Services. Be sure to check out the Own Your Future website. I'd like to again say thank you to my guest co-host, Marci from Minneapolis Public Housing, and a word of thanks to our sponsors for making the show possible, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. And don't forget to go to our website, SavvySeniorSources.com. Thank you.
Provide for your long-term care. Convert your life insurance towards payments for long-term care. If you are concerned about future health care, you can convert your life insurance to pay for home care or assisted living. Health problems can be stressful enough without the added burden of financial obligations. If you feel that you no longer need your life insurance policy, you may want to apply the value towards long-term care.
Hi, I'm Beth Paterson, a certified reverse mortgage professional with Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. Mike and Carol decided that they needed a one-level home to fit their changing health needs. They used the reverse mortgage to purchase their new home instead of using conventional financing. This has benefited them greatly. Barbara decided to do a reverse mortgage to pay off her conventional loan that she was making monthly payments on. She had funds left in the line of credit after paying that off. And a year or so later, when she fell and broke her shoulder, she was able to tap those lines of credit to pay for her home care. As she said, she would have been up the creek without a paddle without the reverse mortgage. If you'd like information on how to receive security, independence, dignity, and control in your retirement years, contact us.